These are all the little ridges that form, so they're all kind of weird, so it's not, again, flat across. The whole one's going to be the flat one. So all of these dips that go in here, these are going to be those gastric pits. And so the pointer would be at the entrance of one, and again, repeat what is the opening at the end of the pointer if we wanted you to pick out the gastric pit. So some of these are better than others. Like up there, those are a little bit better in terms of the depth of these pits. Along with the, and we'll go up one more in just a second to see the different types of the simple columnar, that type of thing. But all of the cells that make up or line those gastric pits, that's the simple columnar. And then everything beneath it is the lamina propria. And then you'll have also in there gastric glands, which are going to be these. And again, we'll go up another magnification to see those a little bit better. And then it ends again with the muscularis mucosa layer. That would be this very bottom layer that goes across. Submucosa, still kind of very open. And then the muscularis externa layer here for circular and longitudinal. The stomach is also one that has that oblique layer, so sometimes it's not as nicely cut to see the two separate layers. Sometimes there's multiple layers in there. This one doesn't look too bad, although it looks all circular in this particular view, except right there. But circular would always be first, and then longitudinal would be to the outside, just like in the esophagus. So it's not going to be any necessarily different than that. Also between the two, longitudinal and circular, we should see these myenteric plexus, these ganglion that are between these. That might be one right here. But again, because the different muscle layers in the stomach, they're a little more difficult to see there. And then to the outside, this layer that looks like it's kind of fluffing off, that would be your serosal layer. So it's very difficult to tell that this would be the stomach if all I gave you was that. So you would have to be able to see the mucosa layer to really know that this is the stomach. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this. And we'll see the layers. All right, so again, lining these gastric pits would be the simple columnar. And if you get it up to a magnification like this on the screen, it looks a whole lot better than it does up here. But you see these little dark spots, these are the nuclei for each one of those cells. And so they are like little columns that are standing here. The gastric glands, they would be all these little circles down here in the lamina propria. I think it also gave a hint on there about lamina propria on this one. Yeah, it's easier to see toward the top. So within these gastric pits, the lamina propria, or not within, but around those gastric pits, would be the lamina propria sections here. This would be your lamina propria. So these are the what again? Gastric glands. And then if it was pointing down here, what would you look for? Simple columnar. Again, if it was out here with opening, then that would be the gastric pit. And in this area that falls kind of under or after the gastric gland, that would be your muscularis mucosa. Lymph nodes, I didn't see anything when I went through this real quick. I'll take another look, but I didn't see any in this one.
They can be like circles.
It can be a dense area. It's very noticeable if it's in there. We'll I've got other stomach slides. Ooh. It's a ganglion, but yeah, these. Do you see how this is different from this? This right here is different from this one. So if we only looked at two, if we just assumed that the stomach would have two, the outer one would be our longitudinal, and then we have our circular. Unfortunately, there's a third cut in the stomachs. Not helpful here. But this would be a ganglion. So with that. Those were those nerve sections. All right, so again, you should be able to recognize it from the gastric pits that are everywhere. This here would be what a lymph nodule would look like. So it's a kind of a dense area that doesn't quite look the same as everything else. It's going to be in the mucosal layer.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be in the mucosal layer. So it kind of looks like it's interrupting the pattern. So gastric glands are everywhere here, gastric glands everywhere here, and all of a sudden there's nothing. It's just this mass. That's your lymph nodule. And then we have our lamina propria going up in here. And then the outside of that. We'll have our new, now here's an interesting thing. We've got our simple columnar up here going on. And then as we make our way, and this is the pyloric, it says pyloric stomach. So what does the pylorus match up with? The duodenum. Okay, so that would be the small intestine. And so it kind of starts to shift right about here. And the reason why I'm seeing this, these are goblet cells. These little circles in here. And we shouldn't have really those up in the stomach area. So, and these are starting to look a little different than the gastric pits. These are more projections that come outward rather than go down in. I don't know if you can see the difference between that, but they're different. So this is probably starting the duodenum here. We wouldn't give you a comment.
Somehow I feel is that another one? Yeah, I guess it's just the same.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
And then the area
Because it's this would, oh, I mean, that looks like, no, that'd be possible. This one, let's see.
Oh, wow. So it's that tempo.
All right, so let me make sure I cover the, all right, this is one example of the ilium slide. Go around. Look at that.
Is that just good?
The what?
What is that taste?
That big thing over there? No.
Was that the Belgian? Oh,
The what?
what did you say? It was a.
It looks like nothing.
Oh. It's pretty good.
It's just something that would look like the typical. All right, so let's go down here. All right, so from here to the top, that would be our mucosa layer. And it has these projections that are coming out. These are the villi. The circles under here. So instead of being gastric glands, because we're no longer in the stomach, these are going to be considered intestinal cells, or we can call them intestinal glands. Either one's going to be fine. And then we have lamina propria, all of the mix in here. The muscularis mucosa layer, that kind of boundary layer right there. We'll go back to see the goblet cells and semicolumnar in a second. This would be the submucosa. And then on our muscularis externa, we have the circular layer and then the longitudinal layer. And then our serosa. And this thing, it goes around like this. And here, that's our ganglion. It's a little easier to see in the colon, that's why the colon has it on there, but you can see it in the other ones as well. All right, so the circles in there, those are the goblet cells, and then everything else in there would be the simple columnar. Everything in between. And then this would also be lamina propria, but if it was here into the point of projection, then you would choose.
Is it so powerful?
Villi.
Oh, the villi.
Villi. Lamina propria.
So you would pass this slide.
depends on if it says point of projection or not. You gotta read. These are the stomach.
Oh, sorry, intestinal cells.
Intestinal cells, intestinal glands, good one. And then again, that very bottom part, muscular mucus. Let's see if we can find better projections. Ooh, what's that? Giant thing over here. That's our lymph nodule. Okay, so this is kind of the reason I ask you not to focus on the color. Because in the other slides, the goblet cells kind of look clear. Here, they're kind of dark. But they're still circles, right? So those are the goblet cells. And then everything else would be considered the simple columnar. Again, point of projection. Villi. If it was here and didn't say just what's the structure or what's the tissue type or whatever. Lamina propria. We go all the way down this way. These are the intestinal cells. Now this muscularis mucosa is a little thicker than the other one. It's right there. And then again we have our submucosal layer all the way through. And we get to our muscularis externa, and this would be circular, and this would be the longitudinal. So you should be able to tell a difference from the top there to about right here, and then from here down, it's the same consistency. And that thing again would be a ganglion of the minor plexus. So again, we really can't give you a slide that just has that and expect you to know, oh, that's ileum. Okay, what we can ask you is circular versus longitudinal with the muscularis externa layer, but we just can't ask you to identify that beforehand from this. Okay. So for the colon, again, this is the one kind of more flat landscape, has more goblet cells in it. And same structures, we're not changing really any names, the intestinal glands, same thing as those intestinal cells. But we are going to have that ganglion that would be asked in this kind of slide because they're very prominent, like that, right there. Huge thing. That's the ganglion. Right. So do you notice all the goblet cells? Mm-hmm. It's kind of, even though it may look like there's pits, it's more flat and together rather than separate. So for the mucosal layer, again from the top of the field of view there to here, and then it begins the submucosal layer. So just this part here is the muscularis mucosa. All the circles in here are going to be the goblet cells, so it's harder to see the simple columnar because the goblet cells kind of take over. And then all of this would be the lamina propria. Again, submucosal layer. And then when we get down to the muscularis externa, this would be our circular layer. This would be the longitudinal layer. And this big thing is the ganglion of myoteric plexus. So all those nerves that are between the muscle layers that help for the motility, that's where they end up. I'll go back out and see if we can see a little bit. We had success on these or not. So again, the stomach, even though you may think, oh, but these have the pits and everything, they have goblet cells. The stomach will not have those. a big key difference. And very helpful. No lymph nodes in this one, but again, kind of flat at the top. This time, do color, do shape, so circles. So all of this here would be the lamina propria. All these dots here, ready? Goblet cells, and then all of these here, columnar. The whole structure here would be a, not villus, a colon. Intestinal glands, each one of these. Here would be our muscularis mucosa layer, and then starting the submucosal layer. And then here's our circular of the muscularis externa, the longitudinal of the muscularis externa, and what was that again? The ganglion of myenteric plexus. Huge thing. Good thing it's multiple choice, huh? No lymph nodes. All right, so again, we're back to looking at a lot of goblet cells, so much so that you really can't see that simple columnar in this one very well at all. This would be the these intestinal glands, this thing. Muscularis mucosa. The entire layer? Nope, the entire layer. Mucosa. Then we have our submucosa underneath that. So submucosa. And then gigantic. Better. All right, so this one has a huge cut for the circular here, all that, and then at the very bottom we have our ganglion, the myenteric plexus, and then the longitudinal layer. So this one's not a very huge longitudinal layer here.
What would be the cause of that? Is it just the cut, or is it?
It's part of the cut from it. This one just is, yeah, just a whole. Some are thin, thin slices. Seems like the ilium is the better thing. All right, so that's another good image for those goblet cells.
Oh, pretty crystal.
So again, a lot, that's the colon. And you can see little pockets of that simple columnar in places. But lots of intestinal glands here, muscularis mucosa, some mucosa. Let's see what their external layer looks like in this one. Oh, much better. So again, that circular, longitudinal, and ganglion myelin. And that ganglion will always be between the circular and longitudinal. It won't be anyplace else but between there.
No? That's it? Oh.
Only 3.